Welcome back to the Librarians of Solana podcast. Welcome back, indeed. It's been a while since we've recorded, almost a year since I've recorded a podcast episode, and no better to kick off the return than with local friend Lucas Oswald. Lucas, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm Lucas. I'm doing pretty great. Happy to be here. Love the podcast.
Running off of a recent top 4 at US Nationals, and a member of the Fabled Runaways team, one of our deep competitors in the Fab team world. How do you feel about your Nationals event, how it went? I mean, obviously you got top 4, but...
Yeah, I feel really good. Being able to top 8 an event like Nationals is obviously a pretty big accomplishment. I feel really happy with it. Also, I played so many good players over the event. So being able to beat such stiff competition made it a lot better. Even if some of my opponents were less good, like, I played against this guy named T. He was pretty bad. But mostly everybody else was pretty solid.
Yeah, you said that it was that Nationals are basically just big callings because they're like region locked and you're not going to play against most people that you would play in just a regular calling. But then at the end of Nationals, you said, well, that was just a pro tour.
Yeah.
with how tough your run was.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
But you still managed to knock it out of the park and lock up that top 4. You died in top 4 to Evan, right?
Yep, I lost to Evan's Lexi.
How do you feel about that matchup, like how it went specifically against Evan's build?
Yeah, so I actually played him in Swiss and in top 4. I lost both times. Those were 2 of my 3 losses across the 16 rounds. So both games actually felt okay. There was just a couple big turns that he had with Icequakes and Codexes that kind of sealed both games up. And then obviously in my top 4 match, he had the, pretty... lucky. It happens. I'm not, salty about it, but he did have the double load into the Rain Razors, which feels bad, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Yeah, I feel good about the matchup in general. I think it's reasonable. But, sometimes you lose. It's not a good matchup, so.
I remember me, you, and Josh drove to the Battle Hardened in Atlanta a week, maybe 2 weeks before. It was right before Nationals.
The week before, yeah.
Yeah, week before Nationals, we drove to Atlanta. For me, it was like 11 and a half hours. It was like 8.5 hours for me, you, and Josh together.
Yeah.
And the whole ride down, me and Josh were talking about playing Lexi, and you're like, why are you playing the bad deck? Lexi sucks. Just play Iceland. That deck has no bad matchups. So it's nice to finally hear you say that Lexi is not a great matchup for Icelander, and I have it on recording too. This is like Christmas morning here.
Yeah, I was in the Battle Hardened. I was at the Battle Hardened in Columbus with Brody and Michael Fang recently, and I was still like joking. I was like, Lexi's terrible, and then I left my Icelander deck at home by accident, so I had to play your Lexi deck. And I got second at the PTI event.
Yeah. How'd that go, buddy?
The one event that I played Lexi at.
You got baited into playing Dash by Brody for the Battle Hardened, and then
I had a lot of fun.
You were you had a lot of fun, but
I got beat by a Kano.
But yeah, I came to the rescue with that Lexi deck, and then you knocked out second place in the Battle Hardened too. So you are on a tear recently. And speaking of a tear, US Nationals Runaways, half of top 8, 4 of the top 8 in the United States Nationals.
Yep, as well as the winner. We really ran away with this one. The team just did super well. One thing that I really liked about it as well was we had 3 different decks represented in top 8. Feels like we had good diversity. It wasn't just we had the deck. Like, we really had the players who put in the prep time, did well. That's one thing I really like about our team is we kind of have that dog in us. We all really like to compete. We really like to come out there, and I think we're some of the scrappiest and some of the best prepared players on the tour, if you will.
Talking about preparation, how does it feel to you now testing with a team as opposed to like testing events by yourself or just playing Fab on a little bit more casual level? How do you feel that you've improved by testing with a group, especially with a group of such incredible players?
Yeah, so one thing that a lot of people will not realize is, sometimes you have things like your fundamentals are aren't as good as you might think they are. You know, you're not quite as good as you think you are. And it can be a nice wake up call to join not just the team, but just playing against other good players, and understand that there are almost always things you can improve in your game. I know when I first joined the team, I thought that there were a lot of things that I was good at that I was not as good as I thought I was at, and they definitely helped me to improve in those areas, and I definitely helped some other people on the team improve in areas that they struggled in. So finding your weak points, being honest with each other at what we could do better at. I think that's a big thing that being on a team helps. And then also, obviously, you just get reps in against good players. So it means your testing process is more skill intensive than if you're not on a team, which is really nice.
Yeah. And in some cases, you're on a team with Matthew Folks, who will gaslight you into thinking pitch stacking is not real.
Yeah, pitch stacking is definitely real. It's my favorite part of the game.
No. Folks will have you believe it's not real. Trust me.
Okay.
If you just play Belittle in your deck, you shuffle your deck, pitch stacking is not real.
I guess.
Speaking of Belittle, we have something coming up in a few days by the time this recording goes live on Tuesday. This should go live on Friday. So on Tuesday, we've got a ban list coming. What do you think is going to happen? It's a Living Legend check, which obviously Briar hit Living Legend, thanks to your teammate. And then we've also got potentially a ban list coming with it. Any thoughts? Anything going to be banned, restricted, unbanned?
Yeah, so I think that there's a couple different ways they could do it. Obviously, there's the conundrum where if they don't hit anything, or if they do hit anything, basically whatever happens, if Lexi and Icelander Living Legend 2 weeks before, two and a half weeks before Worlds, you're going to have a bit of a problem. 2.5 weeks is just barely maybe enough time to test for an event like Worlds. And so they really would prefer, I would imagine, for the format to be known a little more out than that. I think that if that was not a factor at all, what I would like to see is just let these heroes Living Legend during ProQuest season. I don't think that they're oppressive. I don't think that they create an environment where one deck is too strong. I think Lexi's very targetable. She has a few unfavored matchups, and then she has plenty of matchups that are just fine. And I think that she's a reasonable deck to be at the top, especially with strong cards like Three of a Kind, Codex of Frailty. Pulling her, I don't think that any hit really makes sense. If they do hit anything, I think probably the best card to hit would be Three of a Kind. But I think that's kind of not a long-term, or that is a long-term fix, but I think she still might be able to Living Legend even if they hit that. And so I think it's probably just pointless to hit anything out of Lexi. I think Icelander's a little bit more of a different story. I think that the Icelander deck has a very real chance of surviving ProQuest season. But I also don't think that she needs any hits. I've seen some people talk about banning Toe Multi. I don't think that's necessary at all. I think you should let Dromai prove herself first. I think she's a strong deck, but if the deck isn't putting up results, I think that's more of an indication of whether or not a deck needs to be hit than being truly strong. If only 3 or 4 players at a certain tournament are going to be able to play Dromai well, then it's not really a problem, even if it's significantly better than anything else anybody can be doing.
I think the Tomultai discussion is less about Dromai's power or less about Dromai's power and more about Tomultai's power. With it being a legendary card, a lot of people are concerned about like an unfun atmosphere that it can create, especially like if you're Dromai against Lexi, that matchup is generally pretty even in my opinion. But if you can hit like turn 1 Tomultai, then it's very, very, very Dromai favored. So I think that discussion has mainly just been about deleting unfun cards, which can't really base a whole game and balance a format around. So I think that's an interesting discussion point that I've seen, and I agree a lot of people have been talking about it. Saying 3 of a Kind for Lexi is kind of surprising. But we do share the same opinion on just letting the hero live through ProQuest and LL out, because I think that's the best case scenario. You've got heroes right now like Viserai and Phi that just kind of survived their ban. Like they didn't hit LL after getting something hit from their deck, and now they're just like piddling out in the middle to bottom tables of every event. And that feels like a worse death than Living Legend.
A worse death, also probably, at least in my opinion, potentially still a problem post some other changes. Like I think right now Fi would probably be the deck to beat if Lexi Living Legend did tomorrow. You have a good Dromai matchup. You have a good Icelander matchup, I think. And it's just like, the hits that Fi received were good enough at the time. But as he keeps going, he'll eventually be, at least in my opinion, the same beast that he once was. So if that's what they're going for, then I think you could hit something like 3 Return, but I don't think that it needs to happen. Just let Lexi LL this format. I don't want her to pitter patter anymore.
McKinnis has had a pretty hot take about the Lexi ban, which the more I think about it, might not actually be a hot take. Yeah, the Bolton shot ban. It just changes the deck in like the power. It covers the same thing as banning bullseye bracers. You just kind of take away one chain of being able to provide an extra attack, and the deck loses a lot of play.
Yeah, that was actually something that I was advocating for last format when they banned bullseye bracers. I thought that the best hit would either be to suspend Bolton Shot until Lexi achieves Living Legend, or to suspend Endless Arrow. At the time, it was really about those 3 cards: bullseye bracers, Endless Arrow, Bolton Shot, all kind of existing together. That I thought was the problem. But I could see a Bolton Shot suspension. But honestly, I think that might be a little too heavy-handed for Lexi. I think one thing that we've seen in the past is sometimes hitting cards that seem innocuous is a bigger deal than you think. Something like a belittle ban that might have seemed like not a big deal. It's just -3 belittles from your deck, but it actually ended up just killing Fi for that format. I think if you suspend Bolton Shot, there's a very real chance that Lexi's just terrible.
It also takes away like the last percentage points from Azalea.
Yeah, no, Azalea's just like not a real deck anymore when you're not exactly dominating around the ledger, which is pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I could see no changes. All right, well.
Yeah. Also, I mean they can't just kill Riptide. They have to give him something.
He's already dead. You don't gotta play it up. Riptide has perished. He's literally dead. Look at his card. He's a zombie. He's literally dead.
Whatever you say, T.
One thing that I like to do whenever I bring people on first time on the podcast is a rapid fire questions interview. But the way this will work is I've got 4 or 5 questions that I've written down in advance. When I sent you over the script for the episode, I explicitly covered these up so that you would not see them. I ask these, and I want your answer as fast as possible so that it's you on it.
Okay.
So, who is your favorite hero in Flesh and Blood?
Slender.
Favorite card in Flesh and Blood?
Emeritus Scolding Blue.
What's your favorite weapon in Flesh and Blood?
Searing Emberblade.
I was expecting you to say Waning. I said a trifecta there. What's your favorite event you've ever played in?
The Calling Indianapolis 2023.
That's the one you top 8'd? You and Tim both top 8'd? Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Why that one in particular? What's so good about that?
I really enjoyed playing Oldhim. At the time, I played against a lot of Briars and a lot of Oldhim mirrors, and my favorite thing about Flesh and Blood is playing games where both players block and attack reasonable amounts. Just felt like a bunch of really mid-rangey, grindy games of Flesh and Blood, and it felt really rewarding, and especially doing well in an event like that felt really, really nice to me. Especially, I played against a lot of good players as well, and being able to beat good players in grindy games feels good.
Yeah, heck yeah. And one final, 5th question, Lucas Oswald. What does Shock Charmers do?
Spell Void 2.
Any other text on that?
No.
I need to put some battle hardened footage. little clip right here.
Yeah.
What are your expectations? That concludes the rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
What are your expectations for Bright Lights? I mean, you said that it would be kind of bad if we had 2 weeks to prepare for Worlds, right? So if something does happen where Lexi and Icelander hit Living Legend, we've got this brand new format with Bright Lights coming out. If something's broken, what happens? What are your expectations for Bright Lights?
I'm excited. I always really liked playing mech as a class, But it felt a little not bad, but it just felt underwhelming at times playing it extensively because there wasn't a whole lot you could do to innovate. Um, there was obviously the pistol plan and the boost plan, but even the innovations on either end of those were really just boosting differently or pistoling differently. Um, but outside of setting up items and attacking them with induction chambers and just boosting your whole deck away and killing them, there wasn't really a whole lot of in between. But now we have evos. We have new ways to boost, new ways to pistol plan, most likely. I'm really excited. I also really like Tekloveson's design. I think
You mean
he might.
Chain?
It's funny you mentioned that. So I really like Chain. I really like Icelander, and I really like Oldhim. Those are like three of my favorite heroes, and he's like a mix of all of them. He plays at instant speed, bunch of blues. He draws cards. He gives you a bunch of armor block, and he plays from Banish. Probably go reasonably wide on his turn. It just seems like a lot of fun. It also combines my team strengths really well. I'm really excited
coming together here.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited for Team Runaways to get a crack at Tekloveson. But also, Draft is my favorite format in Flesh and Blood. And Draft has always felt... I really enjoyed playing the Draft games, but the biggest weakness in Flesh and Blood Draft has always felt like Pack 2.5 or Pack 2 and then definitely Pack 3 have really just been take the best card for your class. There's not a whole lot of interesting things going on. But I think Bright Lights has the opportunity to change that and show us a limited environment where all three packs have interesting decisions. And I mean, I've always loved Draft. I'm going to keep loving Draft. I think it's also my biggest strength is Draft. And so a set that's designed for limited with new limited gameplay and new interesting ways to play, I literally just cannot explain how excited I am to draft Bright Lights. It's going to be so cool.
If Bright Lights turns out to be where like it's still almost class specific, like where there's 3 different mechanologists in the set, but there's not really 3 different mechanologists in the set, and the draft is like similar drafts we've had before, I'm gonna be pretty upset because I agree. I really want an improvement on the draft format, but I also think it'd be really interesting if basically every mechanologist card in the set was just treated like a generic, where you're drafting it towards whatever hero you're playing. But they're all mechanologist heroes and they're all mechanologist cards. So it's like every card is a generic anyway.
Yeah, I think we've actually already seen a little bit that your fears won't be entirely, it won't be as bad as you might hope it's not. I think the Evo cards already that we've seen, like the 3 for 7, 3 for 6, 3 for 5, like blue, yellow, red cards, they all seem perfectly reasonable cards to play in any deck. Like I'm happy, at least in past limited environments, I'd be perfectly happy playing any 3 for 7. That blocks 3 that I could get my hands on in any deck.
Yeah, but it's gonna feel pretty bad if I'm swinging a 3 for 7 and my opponent has assembled a Gundam.
Sure, but my point is, unless it's significantly higher power level, I think that the modular things that these cards can do, that where they can do 2 different things, will overshadow any like specific synergies that these different heroes are going to make. Like I don't think there's going to be only Tekloveson cards, only X card, only X card. I think that there will be a lot of overlap as well as a lot of distinct cards. I think we've already seen this kind of happen a little bit with Outsiders, where we had, Riptide cards and Azalea cards, and some cards were stronger in one than the other, and very clearly designed for one, but they're perfectly reasonable in the others. You look at a card like Spire Sniping, where it's a fine Riptide card, you'll play it, you're happy taking it late, but it's a really strong Azalea card. Deadly Duo is another example in Benji and Katsu. And so I think doing that for a whole set is really interesting. And I trust the devs more than some other people do. But I really trust the devs with Limited. I feel like most of their Limited sets have knocked it out of the park in terms of gameplay. And so if they're now focusing on ways to make the draft experience better, I put my heart and soul on the line for these guys. They have made a great game, and I think they'll continue to do so.
I think I can definitely get behind that. I have a lot of faith in the line for this set. I'm really excited to see it. Obviously, Mechanologist my favorite hero. Like Dash is my favorite hero. Mechanologist is my favorite class. I'm excited to see what happens. There was a lot of speculation before that Mechanologist might have been a talent instead of a class. That seems to have kind of dissolved now, which it's actually a class. I get to play the game. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to see what happens in the rest of Bright Lights. There's definitely a lot of interesting ways that you can take a set that has only one class focus in it. And the like list slots that we've seen so far have also been pretty exciting.
Oh, they've been
getting
really cool.
New tools for every or a bunch of different classes that needed new tools without having to visit that specific region.
Yeah, new legendaries. New legendaries was not on my bingo card for the expansion slot. I think that's really cool.
Like reprint Tunic, reprint Command and Conquer, things like that I was expecting. But then they're like, oh, also new legendaries. Here you go.
Yeah. I think the legendaries in this set so far look a little underwhelming, but like there can definitely be like avenues for these new cards to be good. And in future expansion slots, I'd be really excited now that we know that the cards in the expansion slots are like real cards, like pretty strong cards in some case. I'm looking at you, Tome. But yeah, no, I mean, I think this adds a new layer to Flesh and Blood that we haven't seen before that looks really exciting.
It's like they looked at the list from Magic, where it was like reprint old cards, and they said, let's make it good. Yeah,
let's make this, but it doesn't suck.
Yeah, like I can get behind what the list is trying to do in Magic, where sometimes it's like a pretty bad common, but it relates to the theme of the set, or it gets somebody who's new to the game to look into an older set with an older archetype. I can get that, but also it'd be a lot cooler if it was just all relevant. Like if a new player opens a pack and gets an extra legendary in their box for a class that wasn't in this set, it achieves the same thing, except you actually put a potentially playable card into the hands of a new player, which I think matters a lot for creating longevity in a game like Flesh and Blood. It really hasn't even been around that much longer. Like it hasn't been around very long.
And keeping players interested that don't like whatever's going on. You know, for this set, obviously it's looks worse because it's just mech. But even in future sets, you have a ninja, a runeblade, and an illusionist in a set. What are the brutes doing? Well, they can get an expansion slot card. So there's still things that are keeping it interesting for mains, which I really like.
Yeah, I definitely like a lot of the things that are going on for Bright Lights. Very excited to see it. And speaking of Bright Lights, here is the Librarians of Solana spoiler card for No, I'm just kidding. I wish. That'd be really cool, though. I'm going to put a cracked bobble on the screen.
Cracked bobble on the screen, yeah.
No, if there was ever a set where I wish I had a spoiler card, it was definitely Bright Lights because Mechanologist. But podcast is back. Brian Gottlieb, if you're seeing this in the future, or whoever's in charge of giving spoilers out.
Yes.
I'll at you boy on Twitter. Who do you think is going to win the World Championships after the Bright Lights shakeup this year?
So who do you think I'm gonna say?
I mean, I think you're gonna say you, but aside from you, who are you gonna?
So my first answer is me, because I'm very cocky and I believe in myself. And then the second answer would be one of the other members of Team Runaways. I know that's like a little biased, but honestly, I think we have the strongest presence. I think we're some of the best players. We have the best process. We're awesome. I really believe in us. We have some great players, and I think you're gonna see that come Worlds. I think we'll kill it.
Heck yeah, looking forward to it. We've got 3 like really big teams and groups that have evolved from ganging up together in testing for Flesh and Blood, and I think it's been Runaways, Wolfpack, Magnolia, or Magnolia/EV Gamers. We're in the middle of a merge right now, so
you're figuring it out.
Coming from us too.
Yeah,
I am going to put my money for Worlds on not this child, but the other child. I'm going to go for Brody Spurlock to finally come out of the woodwork and take a large event down. I mean, he's off of a Pro Tour top 8, right? So, yeah.
If it's not a runaway, I hope it's Brody.
I could definitely get behind that. Obviously, I have to root for all the Magnolia boys. we gotta kill it, man.
I believe.
That is going to wrap up our return to the Librarians of Solana podcast. I hope that you enjoy content like this, because I'm going to be creating a lot more of it in the future going forward. I know I've said that a couple times, but I definitely want to get back on making regular Fab content. I've got a series in my mind that I've been theory crafting for quite a while, and it's finally coming forward. I'm working on putting it together and getting everything created for it. That will help new players become competitive players, or new players learn about all the different classes and availabilities in Flesh and Blood. So be tuned in for that. That'll be coming soon. And thanks for checking out the library. If you were looking for some reading material, I've got some right here for you. An interesting choice for sure. And we'll see you back in 2 weeks.